Okay, I am very sorry for the late upload today, but I wanted to wait as long as I could. That way we can have as many updates to all these injuries as possible. So yeah, I'm sorry, but this is kind of what we have to do if we want to go through and give you all the best up-to-date coverage that we can on every single player here. And of course, before we dive into it, make sure you go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel as well. I mean, we just passed 64,000 subscribers. I'd imagine that everybody here is already subscribed. I'd imagine that everybody here is also, already dropping that like. And one other thing that I need to give a shout out to, of course, you know this, you can see their beautiful logo behind us, is the sponsor of the video, the sponsor of the channel, which is Underdog Fantasy. I can actually pull this up right now. I don't necessarily know exactly how this is going to look because, not going to lie, I did not set up the stream how I should have beforehand. But let's go over and let's check out some of these Underdog Fantasy player props just so I can show y'all what we are going to be betting on later today. In a live stream later today, we will go through, we will have some player prop action. You've already seen us do some drafts this week on Underdog Fantasy for the NFL playoff contest that they are offering. They also have a ton of player props at the same time. I mean, here, let me just go through and move my camera so y'all can get an idea of what you'd be looking at. And when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK, you can go through and take a bet on pretty much any one of these player props. I mean, across pretty much every single state. I actually really like this line of Mike Evans over 63.5 receiving yards. I mean, I know a lot of people are haters on Kyle Pitts. You can feel free to take the under at 55.5 receiving yards. Feel free to take the over at Joe Mixon, half a rushing touchdown. Of course, I'll be making my official bets later on in the live stream tomorrow, not tomorrow, in a couple hours. But when you go over there and you look at the link in the description, the link in the comment section, and you deposit with promo code FLOCK, they'll match that first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. That should be it. Let's go through and let's dive into these updates, and let's start it off here with the Seattle Seahawks and something that's not that important. I just want to make sure I'm bringing this up so I don't have to go through and say anything in the live stream when we're answering questions tonight. We are going to be talking about the Seattle Seahawks with what we have with Adrian Peterson in particular. So Adrian Peterson is upgraded to the active roster. It looks like Adrian Peterson should be active this weekend, which I don't know if I have to say this. You're not playing anybody for Seattle. I mean, right now, this is a running back backfield that, clearly is not what we thought the offense was coming into the season. I mean, they're not going to have as many trips to the red zone. They're not going to be putting up as many points overall as what you wanted to believe initially. And B, this is a running back backfield that is a full-on committee. I mean, here you have Travis Homer, Rashad Penny, Alex Collins, and DJ Dallas all getting a carry 2 weeks ago when they were all fully healthy. And now you're looking at this backfield going, I don't know if Alex Collins is going to play. We don't know if Rashad Penny is going to play. We don't know if Travis Homer is going to play. We don't know if Adrian Peterson is going to play. Travis Homer, Rashad Penny are both listed as questionable, but they practiced in full yesterday. So because they practiced in full, you'd imagine that they are both good to play in this game. And there will just be way too many running backs getting touches here. Not enough running backs coming out and having that elite athletic profile. Not enough running backs playing in a good offense with Seattle looking horrendous. Even though I want to be betting on the Seattle offense bounce back, maybe we are wrong in that. And I think at this point, yeah, just have to avoid every running back that you can there. And now our next update, going over to the New York Jets. You have some bad news for people wanting to start Elijah Moore. Some bad news for people wanting to start any running back there. And that's Zach Wilson. It looks like he is fully healthy. Looks like Zach Wilson is going to be playing this week. And I think that you could say, okay, Zach Wilson, not better than Joe Flacco at this point of his NFL career. And of course, you like Zach Wilson in the long term there for the New York Jets to be better than Mike White, better than Joe Flacco. But for this season in particular, based on what we have seen so far, I don't know if we can get there. I don't know if we can say that Zach Wilson is that much of a better option. And also, Corey Davis looks like he will play this game as well. And now with Corey Davis, y'all know I love the talent of Davis. Now the issue is if you just have yet another active wide receiver, that's yet another player to go through and take targets away from someone like Elijah Moore. So, I mean, with Elijah Moore, I think you actually have to bump him down slightly in our rankings where we had him as a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2 this week. Maybe he's a little bit less appealing. And now going over to the Chicago Bears, Andy Dalton is going to be starting for the Bears here. Looks like Allen Robinson currently listed as doubtful. I'd be very surprised if we got Allen Robinson to play. There's no reason for Robinson to rush himself back whenever he's playing on the franchise tag, playing for a team that's not really playing for anything. And then also you have no Marquise Goodwin. Now Cole Kmet should be good to go. I think Cole Kmet's actually a sneaky play here if you're desperate for a tight end. And with Andy Dalton starting, there's no difference between Andy Dalton and Justin Fields starting for me. I mean, with Justin Fields, yes, you can come out here and say that maybe he's a better option than Dalton in the long haul. You know, I am a Justin Fields hater, like we've been for so long now, and everybody has hated us for being a Justin Fields hater. I don't think there's a massive difference between him and Andy Dalton this year. I think you can start Darnell Mooney as a top 24 wide receiver. Darnell Mooney in previous weeks and coming into the season, I did not give the man his due respect. I actually said if he was a top 15 or 16 wide receiver this season on a points per game basis, I went through and I was going to chug a beer from my shoe on a live stream, hoping he does not get there, hoping we get Darnell Mooney cooling down a little bit. I will admit that, but I think you can start him in fantasy. Now, our next update, we'll be going over to the New York Giants, where it looks like Daniel Jones officially going to be out. This will be the Mike Glennon show. And dear God, this is just a team that has had horrible luck this year when it comes to injuries. You also have Sterling Shepard looking like he's going to be doubtful, Kadarius Toney looking like he's going to be doubtful, and Kyle Rudolph at the same time questionable. You may not get those three options here for the New York Giants. I don't want to say Mike Glennon is a massive step down. He is definitely a downgrade from Daniel Jones, though. If you actually looked at where this Vegas line moved for the Miami Dolphins and the New York Giants game before and after Daniel Jones was ruled out, I believe it opened up at the week where the Miami Dolphins were 2.5-point favorites whenever you thought Daniel Jones could play. And then once Daniel Jones was officially ruled out, that line actually got moved down to 6-point favorites for the Miami Dolphins. So I think at this point, you actually have to lower your expectations just a little bit for someone like Saquon Barkley. Now, with Saquon Barkley, I mean, you really like the talent. I mean, you know, I've been a big fan of Saquon Barkley, and you can try to spin it in a way going, okay, well, maybe with Saquon Barkley, they'll have no other option. Maybe they just have to go through. They have to force feed him the ball. In reality, I'd be a little bit more worried about this team just not being able to move the ball effectively down the field. Like if you're looking at what you have on Underdog Fantasy for their player props this week, Saquon Barkley is only listed for 77.5 total yards. And I mean, keep in mind, the Saquon Barkley is not going to have a lot of touchdown upside. And if you go through and look at our running back 3 for this week, you look at someone like Alexander Mattison. They have Alexander Mattison at like 103 total yards. And at the same time, I mean, you'd imagine that Mattison has more touchdown equity in his own offense. So, I mean, I think that you have to lower your expectations for Saquon Barkley. You still have to play Barkley, but based on how bad this offense is going to be in general, I think that you're probably lowering Saquon Barkley down to be a mid running back 2. Now, our next update will be going over to Houston, where Brandy Cooks should be good to go with an illness. And please, I would love to know if I am wrong in saying this. What is up this season with all these players getting non-COVID illnesses? I do not ever remember this happening. I mean, I've been a diehard dynasty fantasy football player playing in 20 plus leagues. So, I mean, this has been my entire life since like 2014. Has anybody ever seen anything like this? With the amount of players that we had this week, I mean, even going back a couple weeks ago, Lamar Jackson, were these players missing games due to non-COVID related illnesses? I don't know what's going on. I would love to know your opinion in the comment section. Maybe I can read the live chat really quick and see if y'all have anything to say in there. I don't know why this is happening. It's very, very interesting. But nonetheless, Brandy Cooks should be playing from this illness. I don't necessarily know if we can go through and play Brandy Cooks, because a big thing is this Houston Texans offense. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you how bad this Houston Texans offense is. But at the same time, this is a team that is no longer force-feeding Brandy Cooks 10 targets every single week. Brandy Cooks over the past few weeks has gone down to about 5-6 targets. Now, yes, he comes away with the receiving touchdown this past week, but if the volume's not going to be there and this offense is that bad, I think maybe we kind of fade Brandy Cooks a little bit here. I mean, with some other updates, I mean, going on with Houston, still have a couple more of these illnesses. David Johnson is questionable with an illness on his own right, also questionable with a thigh injury at the same time. So there's a real chance that David Johnson does not play in this game. And y'all know I've been coming out here and saying, okay, Rex Burkhead, not interesting. You want nothing to do with them. Maybe Rex Burkhead, if you don't have David Johnson, is someone that if you are desperate for, I mean, some kind of running back production here, if you're looking for a low-end running back too, you can go to Rex Burkhead. I don't think I can advise doing that, though. That would be extremely reckless. And now our next update will be going over to the Jacksonville Jaguars, where James Robinson limited in practice. And what was really weird is there was a report that came out on RotoWorld on Thursday. Now, this wasn't RotoWorld's fault. I'd imagine this is the fault of the beat reporter, whoever wrote this blurb. But there was a report saying that James Robinson limited in practice on Wednesday, which was correct. Then there was a report on Thursday that James Robinson did not practice and he just was not limited. He just wasn't there. Now, that would have been an issue in that if you had James Robinson going out and practicing in a limited capacity and then the following day not practicing at all, you had to panic. Well, he practiced yesterday, and I just read on RotoWorld that the report on Thursday was actually false that came out that James Robinson was not at practice. He actually was limited to practice on Thursday as well. So now it looks like James Robinson back-to-back limited practice sessions. I think you can go through and you could start him now. Keep in mind, if you're going over to Las Vegas and looking at implied team totals, we talk about this all the time. I mean, Vegas knows more than myself. Vegas knows more than every single person in this chat. Vegas knows more than every single person. Nobody's ever going to be able to beat Las Vegas on a large sample. They actually have the Jacksonville Jaguars as the lowest scoring offense this week. They had Tennessee as the lowest scoring offense last week, and that turned out to be true. Now, I think we should be a little bit worried about the offense in general in Jacksonville, but with James Robinson in the role that he should have, especially in the receiving game, I think you should go through and probably play James Robinson. Now, our next matchup will be Daryl Henderson and Odell Beckham Jr. for the Los Angeles Rams, where Daryl Henderson currently is a game time decision. And then I will be a little bit worried because with Daryl Henderson, he had a limited practice in on Friday. He did not participate in practice on either Wednesday or Thursday at the same time. So with Daryl Henderson, the issue is you just don't necessarily know if he is going to be good to go. Now, in this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would go through and I would play Sony Michel if Daryl Henderson were to miss. But the issue is, I believe the Los Angeles Rams actually play at 4 p.m. on Sunday. Let me double check with this, but yeah, they play at SoFi Stadium, so they're playing at 4 p.m. So the issue with Daryl Henderson is you don't know if you're going to have that clarity where he's going to be that game time decision. You're going to have to kind of wait it out. Now, I will say with Daryl Henderson, if he were to play, he is going to be a top 16 running back for us. He will be that high-end running back too, based on how the Los Angeles Rams should be leading in this game. So it puts you in a very difficult position. Now, there are some backup options you can be going to, say if you decide to start Daryl Henderson and he is a game time decision and he ends up being inactive by the time that game gets kicked off. Now, some deep suggestions here. I would say if you want to go over and you want to go to the San Francisco 49ers, and this is just worst case scenario, this if you're playing in a 14, 16 team league and you really wanted to play Daryl Henderson at 4 p.m. so you passed up on playing someone like Nyheim Hines at noon. Well, if that happens and Daryl Henderson's ruled out and you can't get Sony Michel, one of the worst calls I can make, but it's accurate. If you go pick up JaMycal Hasty going up against the Seattle Seahawks, maybe you can get some touches out of that backfield with JaMycal Hasty as a last-minute option, and that's just as an emergency guy looking for someone that's going to get maybe 6 touches, because our next update going over to San Francisco, Deebo Samuel currently listed as out. That's not going to surprise anybody, and you want to get more excited about what you're going to have with Elijah Mitchell because of that. But JaMycal Hasty is going to be good to go, and I want to remind everyone, before JaMycal Hasty was injured, JaMycal Hasty was being the running back, getting 40% of the snaps here. JaMycal Hasty did get usage on third down. So I'm going to be a little hesitant. Now, Elijah Mitchell has looked fantastic. Elijah Mitchell, especially this past week, stepped into a bell cow workload where Jeff Wilson didn't really get any usage at all, didn't really get any playing time at all a week ago. So maybe that's a hint that JaMycal Hasty isn't going to have a workload at all here in San Francisco. I would be a little bit concerned, though. And now our next update, we'll be going over to Las Vegas, where Josh Jacobs limited to practice with an ankle injury. Josh Jacobs is going to be good. Don't worry about it. Not that excited about playing Jacobs. He is operating as a 3-down running back, though, in Las Vegas. So, I mean, I guess you can say that he's going to be a mid-running back, too. Now, our next update will be the Philadelphia Eagles, where you have Jalen Hurts as a game-time decision. And if Jalen Hurts were to play, I'm playing Jalen Hurts. Now, maybe you lower your expectations just slightly based on the ankle injury. I ranked Jalen Hurts as a mid-quarterback 1 this week before really understanding that this ankle injury was going to be something that was lingering into Sunday. Now, if he does deal with that ankle injury on Sunday, I think we have to lower our expectations, even with the great matchup against the New York Jets. Maybe you look at Jalen Hurts and say if he's limited with the mobility he may have, he's more of a low-end quarterback 1. And I know Jalen Hurts, horrible for real life. I get it. That's never been why we like Jalen Hurts in fantasy. The reason you like Jalen Hurts in fantasy is in a 4-point passing touchdown format. If he can come out and average 67 rushing yards a game, that's the equivalent of, you take 6 points, 6 times, that's an additional 150 passing yards for free, not to mention any rushing touchdown equity that he would add on, essentially getting an additional 200 passing yards added on to his statistics every single week, compared to someone like Matthew Stafford, compared to someone like Tom Brady that's not going to run the ball. So in a 4-point passing touchdown format, Jalen Hurts is still appealing any game that he starts based on that rushing upside. Now, Jordan Howard officially out this week. Miles Sanders fully good to go. Miles Sanders was removed from the injury report. And Boston Scott, speaking of those mystery illnesses that I have no idea what's going on, I'm an idiot. I've said this a million times before. It's a non-COVID related illness, but Boston Scott didn't practice on either Thursday or Friday. So I think maybe we have to be a little bit concerned here. And if Boston Scott would not play this game, you have to play Miles Sanders everywhere you can, probably as a high-end running back too, knowing that the Philadelphia Eagles, if they're ever going to be able to move the ball down the field, it will be in a nice matchup against the New York Jets. And Miles Sanders would be the first, second down running back. And maybe Kenneth Gainwell gets some usage on third down, but you are going to have to monitor Boston Scott going into the week. I'm probably not starting Boston Scott regardless, now that it looks like Miles Sanders should be good to go though. And now our next update, I know I've seen a lot of people in the live chat right now screaming about Javonte Williams. You know we have to talk about our guy. Melvin Gordon is going to be out this week. Okay, so Melvin Gordon currently listed as doubtful. Fire up Javonte Williams. Let me go over really quick and look at the line for this game. Now, I want to be a little concerned with this offense that you're going to have with Denver. Obviously, things are kind of falling apart here. And right now, you're looking at the spread on this game as the Kansas City Chiefs are favored by 9.5 points. If they're favored by 9.5 points, you have to definitely understand that Vegas is not expecting that this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be hard for the Denver Broncos to go out there and run the ball. Now, you know with Javonte Williams, based on what we have seen so far this season, that he will have the involvement in the receiving game as well. I'm not necessarily considering another running back coming in and getting touches. Remember, Royce Freeman was over there in Carolina earlier this season. So I really think that with Javonte Williams, he is going to be seeing 80 to 90% of the snaps in this backfield. Comparing him to someone like Jamal Williams, I'm going Javonte Williams easily because Javonte's a more talented running back and a better offense with the same workload. I think you play Javonte Williams everywhere you can. Now, a couple other updates that we need to give out will be to the Arizona Cardinals, where both Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, obviously this is a storyline that we've had to cover every single week for months now, it seems. And every single week, it seems like I come out here and I go, I'm expecting them to play. I think they're going to play, blah, 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 and I'm wrong all the damn time. Now, DeAndre Hopkins has been ruled good to go. Do not worry about DeAndre Hopkins. I think that you go through and you play him with confidence, especially because I know right now Kyler Murray is a game time decision. I get it. I think Kyler Murray plays. Now, the reason I'm saying that is Kyler Murray was a quarterback practicing before the bye. 2 weeks ago, he was at practice already. You have reports coming out from the general manager saying that they're being about as conservative as possible with Kyler Murray. So if he was practicing 2 to 3 weeks ago and you had reports saying that they were just being hyper conservative, it's been like 4 or 5 weeks since that injury. They didn't just place him on IR to begin with. I'm assuming that Kyler Murray plays. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, why haven't they just said Kyler Murray's playing by now? Think about it. If you're Cliff Kingsbury, what advantage do you get by going out there and telling the media, oh yeah, Kyler's good to go? You're going to make some people in the fantasy football community happy. You're going to make, everybody here really happy that they don't have to necessarily think about that going into Sunday. But you don't necessarily want to go through and just give Chicago that information. You don't want to give Chicago the information that Kyler Murray's playing, because how they would prepare for Colt McCoy versus Kyler Murray is going to be drastically different. I'm expecting Kyler Murray to play. I think you fire up Kyler if he does play. I think you fire up DeAndre Hopkins. But full transparency, I've been wrong about this over and over and over again over the past 2 or 3 weeks now. And now our next update will be going over to the Las Vegas Raiders. Darren Waller, doubtful. And I guess at this point, Hunter Renfrow skyrocketing up. The loss of Darren Waller is a lot more impactful for Hunter Renfrow than I think Henry Ruggs was, because Henry Ruggs, as we've already discussed, that field stretching wide receiver, Henry Ruggs was never commanding that much volume at all. If anything, he was creating space for Hunter Renfrow underneath. Well, you take Darren Waller out of this offense, you remove about 8 targets a game. You remove 8, 9 targets a game. throw on what you already lost with Henry Ruggs. Now it looks like Hunter Renfrow will be a wide receiver that can get up to 25-30% of his team's target share, because Bryan Edwards has quietly been one of the worst wide receivers in the NFL this year. Because Bryan Edwards last week played damn near every single snap, as you've seen before. And you know, I'm always of the opinion that you want to go through and you want to chase those wide receivers that, can draw targets at a high rate when they're on the field. We were talking about this with Michael Pittman last week, and that I would rather see my wide receiver go out there, generate separation, and then draw the target and then drop it, rather than not draw the target at all, rather than not being able to separate from the defensive back. Bryan Edwards has been horrible. You can't play Bryan Edwards. Hopefully he gets better, because this team needs him to. I think you go through and you play Hunter Renfrow probably as a should I say high-end wide receiver 2 at this point? The issue with Hunter Renfrow is he doesn't have much yardage upside. He doesn't have much touchdown upside. But if we're going to be talking about him in the light of what he can give you with the receptions alone, I think you have to be very excited about Renfrow. And now our next update, we'll be going over to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where Chase Claypool, good to go. Pat Freiermuth, good to go. Not much to discuss. With Pat Freiermuth, yes, you can go through, and I think you can start him as a low-end quarterback. Low-end tight end 1. We've had some questions in the live stream as of late saying, like, are we going to go Pat Freiermuth or Kyle Pitts? And I think that's crazy. You're looking at it saying, okay, well, with Pat Freiermuth, yes, he's a talented tight end in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. You can say the same thing about Kyle Pitts, but Kyle Pitts is a better talent. At the same time, with Kyle Pitts, he has less target competition, whereas you have Pat Freiermuth going up against Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson. So I understand Freiermuth has been more productive than someone like Kyle Pitts as of late, but I still would rank him behind some options like Dallas Goedert, even though I know he's been more productive than Goedert, as well as Kyle Pitts. So please don't assume that you're going to get this just constant level of touchdown efficiency with Freiermuth in this pretty bad offense. And now I think that should be every update. Please, in the live chat, let me know if I missed anything right now in terms of the injury updates. And of course, go to the description of the video. Check out some of these player props that they have on Underdog Fantasy. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK, they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And if you were wondering why I talk about this so much, it's A, because every time we bring it up, someone tells me how much they enjoy it, and B, because there is no better way, and I repeat, no better way you can support this channel than going through and making that first deposit on Underdog Fantasy and using promo code FLOCK. Now, we'll also get a live stream going on a little later today where I'll go through and I'll make my own bets on Underdog Fantasy, where you can see exactly what I'm thinking. It would be interesting to take the over on Miles Sanders here if we didn't have Boston Scott, but if you think Boston Scott's going to play, I think this is a line that you definitely have to stay away from. What else do they have? Zach Wilson at 224 passes. We'll talk about this. They have Antonio Gibson. I know everybody's in love with Antonio Gibson right now. You can find that link in the live chat. Find it in the description of the video. Thank y'all all so much for coming out to the live stream. I really hope y'all have a great day, and I hope I see y'all with the live stream later tonight.